Good evening everyone, I'm Chris and welcome back to another episode of Rift Amps. Right, on to the next one. This is another PR35 black panel. This one is going off to North America, 120 volt. I've just finished marking out the IEC, punching that, doing all my marks and things and extra holes that I need for all the bits and pieces that I do, so cracking on with that one. The only issue is I don't have a 120 volt mains transformer on the shelf. I thought I did, but I've only got 230 and 240 volt models, so I've had to place an order for some more. So I'm going to try and do as much of this as I can in preparation for when that transformer arrives. But it's really not an issue. It's just the way it is. Anyway, so that's done. On the completed shelf, we've got the Plexi 18 for Falk Music. So waiting our cabinet for that. The PR35. Oh, it still says brown. This is the other black plate one for Coda Music. That's now complete. Cabinet is here. Speaker will finally should be with me on Wednesday. Do you remember I ordered the wrong impedance speaker? The AL SIG, the one I've just finished building that. Again, this one's for North America. Cabinet should be with me this week. Again, speaker as well, so that's done. And the 240 volt Dexter model. This one is actually off to Singapore. They're 240 volt as well over there. So I'm just waiting on the plates to arrive. Then I can get the rest of that one done and ready for shipping. Tone King, Sky King, need to crack on with that and have a good look. I've done the input jack and some other bits and pieces, so I just need to crack on with that. See if we can find the source of the noise on that second channel. Was that indeed the issue? Yes, I think it was. The mat amp, right? Yes, mat amp update. So the main issue I'm having with this is I can't get enough. Can't even say it now. Enough. Cathode current running through them. The bias supply is now fixed, and so the caps arrived. So I've replaced all three. Two of them are okay, but one of them was indeed knackered. I was hoping that would fix the issue, because often on old Fenders, if the bias cap goes, it does mess your bias supply up. Unfortunately, not in this one. So I've had to go get back on the phone to Matamp, because there's a couple of things in here which don't make sense. And of course, they don't have a schematic for this. There's not one online. They've barely got any records at all for amps, from this era. So I've just been speaking to Hayden up there, trying to work some stuff out. This thing's got a very low B+. With no cathode current in any of the output valves, we're only getting 305, 310 volts DC B+, which is incredibly low for a 28 watt amp. But he did say some of them did run quite low, so don't be too off put by that yet. He's going to see if he can find the transformer specs for me. So he's looking back through. I've sent him loads of details across. But until we can get the valves conducting properly and button the amp biased up, I can't do any of the rest of the work. So I'm waiting for them to come back to me. Hellcat, again, we've got to sort the bias issue out. It's biased very cold. Now, from what I understand, some of them were, and then the later models had some circuit changes to accompany that. Well, that's easy enough. We can get on with that and do that. So I'm going to try and get at least that sorted in the next couple of days, so I can then crack on. We need to think about those bent transformers, what we're going to do about those. So one thing that I get asked a lot is, do I ever make mistakes? Whether that's in building amplifiers or simply repairing them. And the answer is yes, all the time. And the reason I can say that is that anyone who does this job for a beginning, whether that's amp repair or manufacturing, knows just how easy it is to make a mistake. Because the level of concentration involved is very, very high. Not only when you're building an amplifier, obviously at the moment this one here, this ANZ Lister signature that I'm doing, hasn't been energized yet, so it's completely safe to work on. But when I've got something on the test bench and it's, there's high voltage in it, your level of concentration is super high, and you're always making sure that you're being as safe and as precise as possible. But yes, I do make mistakes, and the reason for that is it's very easy to get distracted. I'm a one-man operation here, and I could be focusing on a build as I am now, or I'm about to now, for the next, I'm probably going to do 2.5, 3 hours on this at the moment before I move on to something else. And halfway through that, I've been focusing on it really intensely, making sure everything is where I want it to be. But I know full well at some point this morning, I've got 2 or 3 courier deliveries coming with amps being sent in for repair, amps being collected, parts arriving, bits and pieces like that. And I know the second that driver walks through the door, my phone will also ring. It'll be a customer inquiry. I'll have a couple of emails. And before you know it, I've been away from this job for, it could easily be 30, 35, 40 minutes, right? So by the time I come back to this, quite often you forget exactly where you were and what you were thinking at the time and where you were in that process and what you were going to do next. And you look at the next thing and think, okay, I'll carry on with that. Or, oh no, I should be doing that right now. You realise you've left a wire connection off, or you've put the wrong value resistor in, and you might think, well, how is that easy to do? Well, we only use 12 different values of resistor. What I mean by that is the first 2 digits, there's only 12 combinations, and then there's the multiplier. So there's 1 ohm, there's 10 ohm, there's 100 ohm, there's 1,000 ohm, there's 10,000, 100,000 and 1 million. All of those resistors, for example, start with brown black, and then the third color band will be the multiplier. And it's very easy, and I've done it a million times. It's where you need a 10k resistor, you put a 100k resistor, or where you need a 1k resistor, you've put 100 ohm, just because you were doing something else at the same time, the phone was ringing, whatever. So it's very easy to make mistakes. The difference, however, is that I'm also very, very good at spotting my own mistakes. So often I rectify them and fix them before the amp goes out the door or something bad happens. And that's the skill, I think. That's the real skill, is admitting that you're not infallible, that you can make mistakes, and that's okay. And as long as you fix them, and as long as you have a process in place for identifying them and double checking. Now, in some places, you might have somebody else that checks your work for you. I don't here, I'm on my own, so I have my own process for that. But the same with repairs. Before I turn that amp back on after replacing a component, let's just do a double check. Let's make sure, because I could have made a mistake at any point of the day, and I want to make sure that I catch that. So it was a great question. Thank you, Steve, for sending that question in. I really do. I'm like everyone else. I make mistakes, but I learn how to fix them, and I'm really good at catching them. So I've just finished up the PR35 64 black for Coda Music. I always do my black panel stuff in the tuxedo look, which means you get the numbered dials with the cream cupcake knobs and the wheat cloth. I think that's a really nice look that sets it apart from all the standard stuff. If you did want to order your black panel amp in the classic silver cloth with the witch hats, I can do that for you, no problem. But as standard, this is how we do them. 2 knob foot switch as standard for reverb and tremolo, just connects with a standard stereo cable to the back of the amplifier. The LEDs are battery powered, so if you want to have LEDs, you can run a battery, but you don't have to make the pedal work. So standard layout on this one: 2 inputs, high and low, 1 and 2, volume, treble, bass, reverb, speed, intensity. This particular one is loaded, I'll just spin it around for you, with the absolutely incredible Celestion A-type speaker. So standard layout on the back, got your reverb tank connections, foot switch socket, you've got your internal speaker and you've got one for an external. You've got your on-off switch, you've got your half power switch, and the easiest way you can switch this when the amp is in operation, so you don't need to switch the amp off to make that work. And the way I remember it is when the toggle switch is pointing towards the power socket, that's full power, and when you flick it away, that puts it into half power switch. When I go to update my rear panel designs, we will put the labelling on there, but that's where we are. Really happy with that. It looks great, sounds great. Just got to box it up and give it to UPS. Right, Aquila Rossa 5191 said, wouldn't a 7025 preamp valve in V1 of the Kerry King signature reduce potential gain in the amp? A 7025 only has a gain factor of 70 instead of 100, implying that a 12AX7 has a gain factor of 100. Unless he is missing something, it will be a cleaner sounding preamp. For example, less overdrive from it. Not ideal for somebody who would buy the Slayer amp. Well, that's actually incorrect, because two things there. First of all, you're thinking of the 5751 preamp valve, which has an amplification factor of 70. The 7025 is it's a low noise, low microphony, high selected version of a 12AX7. So you've got your valves mixed up there. So don't worry about that. The second thing in that question about gain factors is just because a valve has a gain factor of, let's say, the 12AX7 ECC83 gain factor of 100, that's its maximum. That doesn't mean that in that circuit it's amplifying the signal by a factor of 100. In fact, you will probably never find a circuit where a valve is run, a preamp valve is amplifying at its maximum. For example, in a black panel Princeton Reverb, the very first gain stage is a 12AX7, but it's only running at an amplification factor of, I think it's around 45-50. So it's nowhere near 100. So that does not mean that if you plug in a lower gain valve, you're going to get the same level of reduction as you would if they were set to run at their maximum. It's like saying, here's the maximum speed of my car. Might be 120 miles an hour, but I only ever cruise it at 70. All right? So they never run at the maximum. So amplification factors, they're useful in some respect, but then you never run the valve at its maximum. So don't worry about that too much. Just go by tone. Right, so Ainsley has just left. We've just signed off this signature amplifier. So now that's done, I can convert it to 120 volt. We test them at 240 for the UK, and then I convert them to whatever voltage they need to be. Obviously, it's going to North America, so that's 120, so I need to do that. That's what this pink wire is, just dangling there, little death wire there. So we'll get that converted, get the plates on it, into the cabinet, and that can be shipped off, all done. So the other thing I had to do was I just go through, and obviously I'm on my schematic, which I'm not going to show you, just make sure all the voltages are correct and where they need to be. So yeah, happy with that. So immediately on to the next Ainsley Lister. This one is off to Switzerland. So I've started marking the chassis up so I can get that drilled and punched on all those bits and pieces. Also, I've managed to find some time to start on a new prototype. So this is something I've been thinking about doing for a while. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but I'm going to start building that one as well. See if we can get some interesting sounds out of that. So keep watching to find out what that becomes. Anyway, so also I've got the next PR35 black plate one again. The one where I'm waiting on the main transformer. I've got the bias board in, all my sockets, the rest of the transformers are loaded. So I'm just about to sit down and spend a good hour and a half making some progress on this build. Okay, had a great question about capacitors. And do I think that brand is more important than anything else? So am I particularly fixed on a certain brand? Now, it's a multi-layered, multi-tiered answer, to be honest. What do you want from a capacitor? Well, as a builder and a circuit designer, I want my capacitors to, one, I want them to sound good. That's fair enough. Two, I want them to be consistent, so I know that each one that I buy, whether if I buy a bag of 1,000 22 nanofarad capacitors, I want them all to sound the same. I want them to be consistent. I want them to be reliable, and I also want them to be stable. Now, if any of you know about polystyrene capacitors, you'll know that the value of those varies hugely with temperature. So if the environment that it's in varies in temperature a lot, like a guitar amplifier, the insides of a chassis does warm up because of the valves and transformers, the value changes when it's in circuit, when it's in use. So you want a capacitor that doesn't do that, really. You want one that stays nice and stable. And in fact, if you look at some of the old adverts for capacitors, back in the 40s, 50s and 60s, that's how they were advertised. They weren't advertised on their sound. They were advertised on stability and temperature, right? So those are my things, really. What they sound like, are they consistent, are they stable, and are they readily available, right? That's my other thing. So I want to know that I can buy them in bulk and that they're always going to be the same. I also want to know that if I change the value, I get a consistent result as well. So I learn through experience and through design and testing and stuff that if I increase the value of a capacitor in a certain position, I'm going to get the result that I think I should be getting. I don't want that result to change or be variable. I want that to be consistent. So that's my rule on caps. Other people have, different priorities with them. But for me, those are my main things. And as long as you've got those right, as long as I get those things, I should say, I'm generally happy and the end result is usually fantastic. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. I've actually enjoyed it this week, our little Wednesday Q&A style video. So thank you very much for everyone who's been commenting on our videos before. I'm going to do this a bit more often, actually. I'm going to take some of those comments and answer them in video format whilst I'm working. I think it's great. So please give this video a thumbs up, comments down below. If you want to join the channel like these guys have, you can do so by clicking the button below and subscribe, do all the other bits and pieces, and I'll catch you all on Sunday.